Hello there, welcome to Straight Talk Sacred Pathway. My name's Stuart Wellborn, I'm a British working class author and former therapist, and I'm joined by my regular guest, Wa-Na-Nee-Che from Turtle Island, more commonly known as America. G'day, Wa-Na-Nee-Che, how are you today?
I'm doing four.
You're doing four?
I'm doing four.
Okay, before we get into anything more spiritual, I've got to ask you, what the hell is going on in LA? Because I've only saw bits of it because I don't watch the news, but from what I've seen, the police are firing rubber bullets at protesters that aren't even kicking off.
Yeah, they're firing rubber bullets, but the whole situation comes down is that Trump is behind all of it.
Obviously.
And according to how I understand the law, the National Guard is under the direct leadership and authority of the state.
Right.
The National Guard is not even supposed to be sent over to fight, but they have. Ever since the Korean War, they've been basically being drafted to be deployed, like in Iraq, Afghanistan. And this is why I can understand why the people like the governor should be saying no. You can't use the National Guard because that's home security for the state.
Yeah.
But yet Trump is setting things in because number one, he's trying to blind people on what he's actually trying to do. And what he's trying to do is become a dictator. And all these things that he's coming up with now are sidetracked so that he can go underneath. And if you ever look at Hitler's book, that's exactly how he says it. You have to divert the attention of
Hmm.
what you're really trying to do. And what Trump is trying to do is take over the United States. He basically, again, and if you look at all the fantasies he has about dictators out there, from El Salvador, Russia, Korea, North Korea.
Mm.
He's trying to be just like them, having complete control. And if the Republicans don't wake up, he's actually going to be able to do it.
Why do you think he's wanting to do that? Because, like, he's all about money, isn't he, at the end of the day?
Well, it's his ego. On his birthday now, he's having a military parade,
Oh, that's still going ahead, is it?
you know. And when you look at it, Putin has a parade on his birthday. Uh, Orden has a parade on his
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
birthday. So again, he's trying to be like them. He's trying
King
to,
Jong-un has one every other week, doesn't he?
yeah. And it's crazy. But I think what's going to happen too is the whole fact is that he's going to take it one step too far, and people are going to rebel. You got a lot of crazy people out there, and they're going to start basically mustering something up. And it won't be long, like almost 40 years ago, I was doing training for the sheriff's department and for the police departments at the academy. And I said, if you don't start learning to utilize the community, because the community is the source of your power. If you want to clean up crime, the first thing you want to do is get the citizens on your side because they will report everything to you. They'll tell you exactly where everything is. But the police departments, law enforcement has basically taken themselves out of that picture. They no longer utilize the community like they should. When when I was an officer, police officer, and we had problem on the reservation, the first thing I did was I got in really good with the teenagers, the people in high school, and they liked me so much that if something was going to happen or something went on in the reservation, I knew exactly who did it because they would come and tell me. And crime rate on the reservation dropped to almost zero. And that's because of community involvement.
You were a police officer then once.
Yeah,
Oh, how
I
long
got
was you?
34 years of law enforcement.
How long?
34.
34.
Yeah,
Wow.
of some sorts of law enforcement.
Well, I spent 10 years working in prison, so I looked after him after you got him, but in our country, obviously.
As a guard or as an inmate?
No, I was the right side of the bars. But at the end of the day, I treated them unfair. If they didn't mess with me, I didn't mess with them. It's not my place to judge them. That's the judge's job. I was just there to make sure that they didn't hurt each other or themselves.
Uh-huh.
Uh, okay, we don't want to stay on politics because we're trying to be more of a spiritual type podcast. I want to talk about your CD,
Okay.
which your meditation, shall we call it, because viewers, listeners, you can go to humancircleoflife.com. There will be a link in the comments anyway, and subscribe to Wa-Na-Nee-Che's Human Circle of Life and get the meditation for free. Now, I'm gonna have to put my glasses back on again and hope I can see in this light because the bulb's gone. Okay, there are 6 tracks on your CD. So there's a preparation, an introduction, a prayer, which are quite short, a journey song, a guided meditation, which is 31 minutes, and then a healing song. Would you like to talk about your CD
Okay, I was
then?
going to say, when you said 6 tracks being pulled by one engine, the CD is really very special, but people have to understand how to utilize it. The first thing they'll notice that when you go through it, there really isn't no psychological suggestions once you get on the pathway. So whatever comes to you is coming from your subconscious. It introduces you to who you are. It introduces problem areas that you need to basically address if you want to heal. Now, one of the things I've never told people is that when you're going to use the CD, ask a question of what you want. Say, for instance, you would say, I want to see how I can protect myself from negative energy. So you put that thought into your body, into your life force energy. About 80% of the time when you go to the CD, it'll address that problem.
That's cool.
The other thing is that if you sit there and you go through it and you try to interpret what has been given to you, you have to be able to, as soon as you see it, you need to analyze it without thinking. The longer you wait, all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, it could be this, it could be that. So it goes into your brain and you don't get the right answer. Each journey, each pathway that you go down, whatever comes to you is the thing that you want to help you with. They help you by giving you a gift. The gift itself could be the problem itself. Then when you go to the second entity, again, you're given a gift, but that will basically further try to have you understand the problem you're trying to resolve. The third is the same thing. So by the time you get all three, the last one is actually your solution. But the hardest thing to do is to interpret without thinking. When I do the workshops, when they want to discuss, say, for instance, the gifts and everything, I usually count one at a time and then mention what you see. The minute they say what came to them and what the gift was, boom, a picture comes. And I go with the picture. I don't think about it. I just, on the spur of the moment, boom, whatever comes in, that's how I do it. So each gift, again, is the same way, but each gift, basically, again, will understand situations within their own life that they have to resolve before they can get to the solution. Sometimes you won't go anyplace, and that's because your mind is blocking it. They don't want to give up the power to your energy. So it takes a while sometimes, and this has happened maybe 3 or 4 times with people where they only got to a point where they went through a doorway and then they came to their sacred spot. They couldn't go beyond it. And I know one of the individuals, his name was James, he always ends up going on a hill, on a rock, and having his foot placed on a rock like one of these great white hunters. And he went through the CD about 8 times. And he sat there. The first thing he said was, I went to the doorway, I went to the hill, and all of a sudden, this energy appeared. And it was so funny because everybody in the group that knew James, they all go, finally. He finally went through and started seeing things that were given to him because he was so well educated and so well mind controlled, he couldn't get into that journey. So, like I tell people, don't worry about it. If nothing else, when you do the CD, ask the CD to help you overcome the control of the mind.
So, how often should somebody use this meditation?
I always say as often as you want, but learn to, again, once you resolve the message of what it's trying to tell you, then you should go on. Because sometimes if you get stuck, it'll repeat again and repeat, but different gifts will be given to you so that you'll become understand what they're trying to tell you. But as soon as you find out what it is, you can go through a CD several times until you finally find that connection that you need. Then after that, you ask another question, and then you use the CD. There's no limitation on the CD itself, but where people have to understand is that enough of them get together, I can come and run a workshop and actually show them how to reconnect to what they see in a second answer without thinking. So once they can get to there, then they got it made because it doesn't take much. Every time they have it, the CD, it'll basically again help them. It can help you in finding your energy source of basically who you are by saying, where am I within the sacred circle, within the sacred hoop? And then they'll show you what your connection is. And then when you find your connection, you'll have an energy guide that'll take you to a dimension where they'll start training you on how to utilize your gift. But I was very careful not to do, any psychological messages because if you look at a lot of mediation, they'll actually sit there and say, you look down the pathway, here comes the bear. Well, what if the bear is not there to help you? You get the wrong message. So that's why I say I made it clear in the CD that whatever happens, you're responsible. That's what you're calling on. So it's primarily just for you.
Oh yeah, I've got a book on Celtic shamanism, and the first meditation it tries to get you to go through says,
Yeah.
you go into a cave and you see this, that, and the other, and I'm like, no, it's not happening. And I tried it, many times, and I'm like, no, I'm not in a cave.
But within the cave basically means sometimes you're in the darkness and
Oh, I had nothing.
you haven't seen the light yet. But as you go into that cave, eventually you'll see a light in the distance, and then you walk towards it. So everything has a meaning. Everything has a meaning, no matter what you see, whatever comes. Again, it's problems within your own self, within your subconscious, within the control of the mind and how to defeat the mind.
Yeah, it's no easy thing for some people, especially if you're very analytical. You try to switch off and not think of anything, and then something comes in and you start analyzing it.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes the cat.
The primary goal of the CD is to start taking things out of your subconscious that you're controlled by. It basically is a battle between your mind and your life force energy. And no matter how many times you do it, every time you do it, if nothing happens, something actually is happening that you don't realize. And that is life force energy gaining more strength, becoming more powerful until it finally puts the mind to sleep and boom, you're in your zone.
Yeah, some people say that's like a battle between the ego and the higher self.
Yeah.
Is that what
But
you would
one,
say?
yeah. But one of the things about the CD, don't let your kids listen to it
Why is that then?
because they steal it. I mean, I've had several calls from quite a few people saying, we have to get another CD. And I would say, why? We can't find it. It's gone. You have kids? Yeah, go look under the mattress. Go look under the mattress. There it is. Kids seem to love it because it relaxes them, but without realizing they're actually getting training.
I would suggest that we should let kids have it then,
Yeah.
especially how, you know, modern day kids, I'm not saying all of them, but now that they're being grown up with social media and things, it's all about being an influencer and being on social media,
Mhm.
um, and being critical of a lot of things, isn't it? So I would say that your advice was wrong there. Give it your kids.
Yeah. That's why I like the CD too, because it should promote questions. And if people don't quite understand what they mean, well then I can interpret. Yeah, it'll cost them an arm and a leg though to get the answers.
Literally, an arm and a leg.
Yeah, arm and a leg. No, all I have to do basically is I tell them that go ahead and make a donation to the Human Circle of Life, and if they agree with the interpretation, if they don't agree, don't do nothing. But if I do answer their questions, then they could help by donating. And if we get enough people doing it, then I can actually come over to England.
Just remember though, Wa-Na-Nee-Che, this kind of broadcast goes out worldwide. So some
Yeah.
people would maybe listening, wanting your. We keep referring to it as a CD, but people can get it as a download because I've put it into one entire MP3 that they get for free if they sign up to the Human Circle of Life. So they can contact you through that.
One of the things that I want people to understand is that they know where all the festivals are going to be held. They can actually contact the organizer to see whether or not they would bring me in to the festivals and do a talk. And then I can have my little booth. And then if people want to come and ask questions, they can.
You heard it here first,
That's what I
folks.
used to do when I did a lot of festivals. And I remember one festival up in Scotland, and they advertised, and I was in a great big huge tent that actually held about 45 people. Well, it was packed. It was standing room only, and people were sitting outside the door listening. So one of the things the festivals understand too, I'm a draw. If I'm going to do something there, people will come.
45 doesn't sound like a lot though.
You know, but by the time they're standing room only, you had about 100. And I've done talks, in front of probably 200, 250 people in a kind of like a stadium type thing.
As I said, folks, if you heard it here first, if you're running an event and you would like one of each to come and speak, get in contact because
Yeah.
then you can ask him face to face these questions.
Yeah, so, a lot of times that it would cover my cost of my plane ticket and transportation and room and board.
Right, can I ask you about the actual individual tracks now, if that's
Yep.
okay? Now, as I said, if you go to the Human Circle of Life, folks, you can sign up to the Human Circle of Life and you will get an MP3 where all six tracks have been put together. I've put them together in Audacity, but there are six individual tracks. So the first track says preparation. What's that track about then?
The first one is just to basically relax you. to work on the mind so that the mind will release. And it also will help you. I know some people freak out when all of a sudden they're looking at themselves because their energy is hovering over them.
Oh, astral projection.
Yeah, and the first CD is to get the people to understand this is supposed to happen. And not only that, but they have to realize they're in a very safe atmosphere. They don't have to worry about their energy traveling. That's why a lot of them, once that happens, they will go to sleep. But in that sleep, they'll have their vision. And the first thing that people have to understand, you have doorways. But what is your doorway? So the first track basically recognizes your doorway so that you can go through it. And once you go through it, you go above the earth in your energy form, and you wait for the earth to pull you to your sacred spot. And once you get your sacred spot, then you can go ahead and start your journey. But the other thing too, when you find your sacred spot, your sacred place, remember it because you can actually, most of the time, can find it on the earth. And if you can't find it on the earth, you can bring it to you and you go to that place.
When you say bring it to you, you mean in your mind.
Now, so wherever there your sacred spot is, that's somewhat of a connection that you have. So that's the first thing that you learn is that there's a connection to the earth, and it shows you that connection by where you go.
Preparation, because you got the track length, just says 1 minute 41. So is that just you talking, or is there?
Yeah, I always tell people that if you listen to it, put earphones on because when you don't put earphones on, you can hear it, and it's good. But when you put those earphones on, all of a sudden I'm right in the center. I'm inside of you, and you have a more powerful experience because the voice basically is very hypnotic, and it helps people to relax, but it helps people put them in that state of being that they need to be in.
You took the words out of my mouth there because I was just about to say I used to do hypnotherapy. So, like, I used to say I had some hypnotherapy. I had CDs actually, but they're MP3s now. But I'd always say listen to it through headphones because you get the better experience. So, but you mentioning hypnosis, you just took the words out of my mouth.
You know, when mad cow disease was there,
Uh-huh.
and these two cows were talking, and they were talking about the mad cow disease. And the one cow, aren't you worried about getting the mad cow disease? Oh no, I'm not worried at all. The other cow says, why not? He said, I'm a duck.
I thought this was going to be you telling a joke. You've not dropped a joke in for a few episodes, so it's good you did. So, track two says introduction. It's 2 minutes 24. What's happening in that track then?
I'm trying to remember now on the track. I think it brings you to where you need to be upon the earth. And it helps you to see the four directions and to see the pathways so that you can see what comes to you from that direction. So it's four direction, but remember, everything has to go clockwise. The
Hmm.
only time you go anti-clockwise is when you're completely confused. So you go the opposite way because that deals with confusion.
Okay, so track three says prayer. That's 1 minute 47. Is that a
That's
native?
actually the journey. Yeah.
Hmm?
That's the journey itself.
No, that's the one after because we've got prayer and then journey song.
Yeah. 'Cause there's
So
one that basically, again, too, before they go on their journey, I do a four direction song, chant, I should say, that when you do the chant, you do to the four directions, and what you're doing is you're calling in the energies. It doesn't have any words because I put the picture into the words.
is that the Journey song then that
That's a
you
journey song.
right? Is that in English or in Ojibwa or
It's actually in the language of your heart because there are no words. It's just a feeling that comes from you. Like sometimes you can sit there and all of a sudden something comes to you emotionally and you start just humming or chanting and it'll bring tears to your eyes because you're connected.
so is that track just music then?
It's just that one chant and that's it.
Is that a chant in English or is that a chant in some indigenous language?
No, well, the chant itself, it's just like when I sing my one song, you know, way ah ya, way ah ya, hey ya, hey, hey. What I'm doing is there's no words to it, but there are pictures and feelings that go into the chant. And what you do is you send that message up. So a chant is only a communication device that will help you connect to whatever you have to connect because you're sending the picture up. And I always say you have probably a million different dialects. And people will always say you have to speak your own language. Well, the creator understands the heart. The energies understand the heart. So what you're doing is basically calling out for help. So the message that you give, the music formulates it into a picture, and the picture is the language.
So in some ways that's a bit like the mantras that some people use that is to instead of using real words because then you attach meaning to the
Mhm.
words and start analyzing them, it's to distract your mind, is it then? The chant?
Yeah, it's basically again to take over the mind
Cool.
and to show people how to do it. Just like when we lose somebody, we have emotions, and sometimes sounds will come out, and all of a sudden, when that sound comes out, you actually imagine the person. So what you're doing is you're connecting through your heart, through a song, through a chant, and then all of a sudden, the outcome is that that person that passed on will come to you and comfort you.
Wow. Well, the next track is the guided meditation, and we don't need to talk about that because people can experience that themselves when they sign up and get it for free.
Yeah,
And the final track is a healing song that's 5 minutes 20.
yep. Once they come out of their journey and everything, they've experienced. Most people will experience something very, very heavy. So the healing song itself is to bring them back into connection between their energy and their body, and also to promote healing to them.
That's really cool. I remember when I first got this CD before I lost it when I moved house, that I used it a few times, and like you say, you do kind of need that to bring you back down again, don't you? The
Yeah.
bit because you can feel a bit disconnected, like I did at when you did that live event. I think it was when you're passing around. I can't remember what we were doing now, but I went really lightheaded.
The healing song also basic is very powerful to the point where, like when people go sometimes, they feel so good about something, they don't want to come back. So the healing song forces their spirit to come back.
Right. No, I've heard many spiritual people talk like that
Yeah.
about not. I mean, here's a weird thing I've got to share with you, Wa-Na-Nee-Che. I am going to listen to this again very soon. But what I've been doing, I mentioned him before, Sadhguru. He's got an app where you do a meditation with him. So I've been doing it daily.
Uh-huh.
And when I'm in that meditation, sometimes when it's a good meditation, it's only 20 minutes, but I don't. I have to force myself to come back. But here's the weird thing, because it's an app, there was something. There's like you get little digital cards to keep you going because it's like, oh no, you've reached this milestone, so well done and that. The other day, I'd reached 1,440 minutes of meditation, and I got a card, and I was like, whoa, that was a milestone. So
Yeah.
144 came up, which
Yeah.
you've been talking about. How
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't say it's weird, but it was weird to me.
If people want to basically even understand it more, the songs, the chants, what do yoga people do when they're getting ready to meditate? Om, om, they chant. Again, that's connection. The chant is connection. But I worked with one of the, how would you say, grandmasters in yoga. So I said, I'm going to teach you a whole new way of connecting. So he said, really? I said, yeah. I said, so I want you to close your eyes, do anything you want to do with your fingers, and you go, san, san. You do it maybe 4 times. And next one, ah, ah. You do that maybe for about a minute. And then next one is you. They go that for about a minute. And the last one is myrrh, myrrh. And then when you put it together, you say sense of humor. I don't know the yoga instructor that was really good at it, and she actually used it a couple of times in her class to loosen the mind, to get people comfortable, get people basically loosen up. She said it worked fantastic.
Oh wow, I've just looked at the time. We've got like literally a couple of minutes left, so we better wrap up. It's been really interesting talking about your meditation. I know we keep listeners and viewers, we keep referring to it as a CD because that's how normally you would get it, but you're getting it free as an MP3. All you got to do is go to the website, humancircleoflife.com, fill in your details, and you will get an email with a link that says subscribe and download. And then you'll be able to download the full thing. And obviously, if you've got any questions, do send them in so I can ask Wa-Na-Nee-Che. I better. No, we really ain't got time to ask one of Linda's questions. Linda, I'm sorry. We're going to have to ask your questions next week now. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things that people, what I discussed today, I gave a lot of knowledge that I've never given to other people on how to utilize the CD. So that's one of the things that the telecasting is doing is the opportunity to actually give them the knowledge that I haven't given to people. I don't even, sometimes when I do the CD in workshops, sometimes I don't even give them that information. So it was good, to have something like on a CD. Now they got inside information that they now know.
There you go. So you've just been treated, folks. So share this, especially this episode, because I think this is a good episode for people to share because then they not just because they get a freebie, but by doing the meditation, they're gonna, work on their issues, aren't they?
Yep. Because people have to start moving fast. The CD will help them because if they look at the world today, it's completely screwed up. And if they don't get off the couch, they don't get off the chair and start doing something about it and basically joining the human circle of life, helping mend the sacred soup, things will change, but they won't change, with 40 people.
No. Right. Any final thoughts? You've got 30
Yeah.
seconds if you want one final message, and then we're gonna have to go.
Yeah. Once they do the CD, hopefully they should be getting a lot of questions.
Let's hope so. So, folks, go and get your free meditation, Human Circle of Life, and share this podcast or any of the other episodes. Subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do, and tell your friends, as he says. And we will be back next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Straight Talk Sacred Pathway podcast. I hope you'll come back for our next episode next week. And if you've got any questions you'd like me to put to Wa-Na-Nee-Che, you can email me at stuart@realityresponsibility.com. Details should be in the description where you're listening to this podcast.